For decades, audiences believed they understood the connection between Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne. They were co-stars in 5 celebrated films, icons of Hollywood's golden age, and symbols of a bygone cinematic era. Their chemistry on screen felt effortless, so natural that many assumed art must have imitated life. Yet the public story remained carefully framed. Deep friendship, fierce loyalty, nothing more. Over time, that explanation became part of Hollywood folklore. But as with many legendary partnerships, the reality appears to have been more layered and more human than headlines ever suggested. This documentary-style exploration does not chase scandal or rewrite history for shock value. Instead, it looks at how memory, family testimony, and personal reflection can reshape how we understand two towering figures of classic cinema. Sometimes the most meaningful truths are not explosive revelations, but quiet clarifications. And in this case, those clarifications came not from tabloids, but from someone who witnessed the private grief behind the public myth. When John Wayne passed away in June 1979, at the age of 72, the world mourned a screen legend. His career had defined American westerns for a generation, and his larger-than-life persona seemed almost inseparable from the nation's cultural identity. For Maureen O'Hara, however, the loss was not symbolic, it was deeply personal. Family members later described how the news affected her in a way that surprised even those closest to her. Grief reveals emotional hierarchies we rarely speak about openly. According to her grandson, he had seen her endure professional setbacks, public scrutiny, and profound personal losses with remarkable composure. Yet this moment felt different. It was not the reaction of someone losing a colleague or even a longtime collaborator. It was the sorrow of losing a constant presence, a stabilizing force who had existed in her life for decades. That distinction matters. It suggests that whatever defined their bond went beyond industry camaraderie and beyond the polished narratives crafted for interviews and press tour. To understand their connection, it helps to return to the beginning. O'Hara and Wayne were first paired under the direction of John Ford, whose influence shaped both of their careers. Their early collaboration in Rio Grande placed them opposite one another in roles that required emotional intensity, restraint, and mutual respect. Observers often described the atmosphere on set as charged, but not in a frivolous way. Instead, it reflected two strong personalities recognizing something familiar in each other. O'Hara was known for her independence and refusal to conform to Hollywood's expectations of submissive femininity. Wayne, despite his commanding presence, reportedly treated her as an equal rather than an ornament. In an industry that frequently blurred professional and personal boundaries, that mutual respect stood out. Their dynamic felt grounded rather than performative, which may explain why audiences sensed authenticity in their scenes together. From the outset, their partnership was built less on flirtation and more on trust. Hollywood in the mid-20th century was not an easy environment for women who resisted pressure. O'Hara spoke openly in later years about the realities of the casting couch and the consequences of refusing powerful figures. Maintaining dignity often came at professional cost. Within that context, safety was not merely emotional comfort, it was survival. Accounts from family members suggest she valued relationships where she did not feel objectified or maneuvered. Around Wayne and Ford, she reportedly felt secure enough to relax, debate, laugh, and participate as an equal presence. Social gatherings among the cast and crew were lively, filled with music, storytelling, and spirited conversation. O'Hara earned a reputation for holding her own in traditionally male spaces without surrendering her identity. That foundation of respect is crucial when analyzing their later bond. It reframes the story from romantic speculation to something arguably rarer. A sustained friendship between two powerful personalities who understood boundaries in a volatile industry. Still, decades of speculation persisted. The tenderness visible in films like The Quiet Man fueled curiosity about what might have existed off-camera. Interviews over the years typically produced similar answers from both actors: admiration, affection, but no romance. They insisted their connection was rooted in loyalty rather than longing. Yet family recollections add nuance rather than contradiction. According to her grandson, there may have been a single moment when curiosity crossed into reality. Not a sweeping affair, not a hidden relationship, but an isolated incident acknowledged privately. What makes this detail compelling is not its sensational value, but its restraint. The suggestion is that clarity followed quickly. Two adults, aware of the potential complications, recognized that their strength as friends outweighed any fleeting temptation. In this interpretation, the story becomes less about secrecy and more about decision-making, about choosing preservation over passion in order to protect something enduring. One symbolic detail has often been cited in family accounts. O'Hara reportedly kept a hotel room key from that era, along with a small handwritten note containing 4 simple words: better as friends. Whether viewed as literal artifact or emotional metaphor, the message encapsulates the maturity behind their choice. It implies neither regret nor denial, but resolution. In a culture that often equates intensity with permanence, their story suggests another possibility, that sometimes acknowledging attraction and then stepping back can strengthen rather than shatter a bond. This perspective aligns with Wayne's own comments in interviews, where he once described O'Hara as the only woman he considered a true friend in the way he valued male camaraderie. At first glance, the remark sounded unusual. In context, it reads as gratitude. He appeared to appreciate a relationship free from possessiveness, one that offered honesty without expectation of control or dependency. Examining Wayne's broader personal history adds further context. He married 3 times, and biographers have documented patterns of infidelity, emotional distance, and work-driven absence. His public persona projected certainty and dominance, but his private relationships often reflected restlessness. O'Hara's presence did not follow that pattern. She was not entangled in cycles of jealousy or reconciliation. She maintained cordial relationships with members of his family, including his wives, which suggests a transparency incompatible with hidden rivalry. According to relatives, her ability to communicate comfortably across cultural lines strengthened those connections. That ease further supports the argument that her bond with Wayne rested on trust rather than secrecy. In a life marked by turbulence, this steadiness may have been what he valued most. It represented a space where he was neither idolized nor challenged for control, but simply accepted as a flawed human being. As Wayne's health declined in the 1970s, illness reportedly softened the edges of his formidable public image. Surgery and prolonged medical struggles forced reflection. During this period, he and O'Hara remained in contact. Family accounts describe quiet visits and conversations that revisited decades of shared experience. There were no dramatic declarations, only remembrance. When he died, the grief she displayed was interpreted by those close to her as the loss of constancy rather than unfinished romance. That distinction matters in documentary analysis. Emotional intensity does not automatically signal suppressed love. It can also signify the end of a lifelong anchor. For O'Hara, Wayne had represented stability through shifting eras of fame, personal upheaval, and industry change. His absence marked the end of a chapter that could never be replicated. Why did this fuller picture take so long to emerge? Partly because public narratives favor simplicity. Just friends is easier to categorize than a relationship that briefly crossed boundaries and then deliberately retreated. Family members removed from studio publicity machines may feel freer to speak candidly. Their accounts complicate the myth without dismantling it. Instead of diminishing the legend, the added nuance humanizes it. It reveals 2 adults navigating attraction, loyalty, ego, and restraint in ways that mirror ordinary experience, albeit on an extraordinary stage. For audiences revisiting their films today, this context can deepen appreciation rather than invite cynicism. Knowing that they confronted possibility and chose preservation lends additional weight to the quiet glances and measured dialogue that define their performances. Ultimately, the story of Maureen O'Hara and John Wayne is not about scandal. It is about choice. It is about recognizing that not every powerful connection must culminate in romance to be meaningful. In fact, their legacy may be stronger precisely because it resisted that trajectory. The tears shed in private, the symbolic keepsake, and the words, better as friends, suggest resolution rather than regret. For historians and film lovers alike, this layered understanding invites reflection on how we define love, loyalty, and friendship. Does acknowledging a brief crossing of lines diminish their bond, or does it highlight the discipline required to protect it? As we look back on their shared body of work and the era they helped define, perhaps the most enduring lesson is that some relationships survive because they refuse to become what the world expects.